So what we got here are two Grunow chassis. One's a 12W and one is a 12B. Now, the radio, I keep saying stereo. The radio I want to restore is my my Grunow 1297. And I managed to score this 1291 that has been restored on Facebook Marketplace. I had to drive a couple hundred miles to get it. But I think it's going to solve my problem. See, here's the deal. This is the 12W chassis that John Bachman restored. He was a good friend of mine. Sadly, his life was ended by a texting teenage driver. And I'm going to keep talking about this until people learn. Anyway, John worked on this radio for a couple of years, and he never quite got it to 100%. And after his passing, I ended up with it. And, his widow just was trying to redo the house a little bit, and this just didn't really fit in anymore. So she asked if I wanted it. I took it home, and I tried to finish what he started. He never quite got the control or the selector switches dialed in just right, so they would cut out. They had worn contacts. So I went ahead and I tried to clean them, and when that failed, I bought another, I got a 12B chassis just like that one, and I used it as a parts unit, and I started swapping the entire control switch stack into this one. I could never get it to work again, and I think what I actually did was I didn't just do the control stack. I also replaced a bunch of damaged wiring. And I just checked point to point between this working chassis and this one that doesn't work to make sure every wire was put where it belongs. I spent so far 2 hours checking every single connection, and it is all correct. But there's one factor I didn't consider, and that was it's possible that I fucked up. The devil, you say? No, seriously. One thing I did was I replaced all the tuning capacitor wiring. And I think by changing the wiring out, I think I might have used a thicker wire and it wasn't the same length as the original. I took the entire set out of alignment to the point where I just cannot get it back. I do not have an AM transmitter or how do they call it? A frequency generator. I don't have one of those. So I cannot, unfortunately, I can't realign it. But I don't know that that's the only problem. There could be other issues as well, but that's the one that I'm going to blame it on. Anyway, so what I'm doing right now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this chassis back up to 100%. I'm actually putting in some of the newer old stock tubes that I bought for that one into this one. I bought them because they were available, and, buy stuff while it's around, right? So I swapped out a couple of glass tubes that were in this chassis. See, the Grunow was originally built with all metal tubes. That was one of its selling points. So we're actually pulling some of the glass tubes out of this chassis and from that one and putting them into here. So we're going to have all metal tubes except for the rectifier. That one stays glass. It's supposed to be glass. We've got two of those. Yeah. So that's kind of a quick verbal unload of what's happening here. Some of the repairs I did to the Grunow 12W chassis, I'd like to move over to this one. So I replaced the tuning deck grommets. They were completely rotted. I replaced them, and I want to move them over to here, but that's going to be easier said than done, I think. I'm going to have to desolder all of these ground straps, which shouldn't be a big deal. I've got big enough guns to do so. Let's see. So some of the differences between the two chassis. The 12B is a double illuminated dial. The 12W only has a single lamp. So I like the fact that this is a 2-lamp dial, even though it's not historically accurate for the 1297 console. Let's take a look at the 1291, for example. 1291 looks pretty much, to the untrained eye, just like the 1297. Difference being there is no slidey-hidey door for the dial. So on the 12W, excuse me, the 1297, there is a door that pulls out and covers the dial. It's very Art Deco and absolutely gorgeous. The 1291 features a smaller speaker and uses a 6F6 push-pull tube amplifier. Now, the 12W uses 6L6s. So I just went ahead and swapped the 6L6s into this chassis, and they sound really nice. There are a few other very minor differences in cap and resistor values. I'm going to have to trace those out and change them. Once you get a good look at both of these on the underside, you're going to see, holy crap. If you've never worked on a tube set like this, or one that's been rehabbed numerous times, you're going to probably pass out from the sheer shock of what you're about to see. These chassis are not pretty. Neither one of them. They're quite nasty looking. So let me talk a little bit about what was done to this chassis. And I apologize if I'm jumping all over the place. There's a lot to cover here. A lot of different things I want to discuss. So I'm trying to get it all at once in one shot. This was sent off. So this radio that I just bought on Facebook Marketplace, that's this chassis and that cabinet right there, that console. It's a one owner. It was actually a family heirloom, and the gentleman I bought it from remembers it from when he was a child, and he was like in his 70s. This radio is nearly 90 years old. In fact, the production date is written in chalk, 9/29 or 9/14 of 36. So it's an earlier production year for the 1291. A little on the early side, but nevertheless. This was owned originally by a gentleman who was a radio repairman, and he has done some things to it, unspeakable things. For example, you'll notice this is a tuning coil and a tube, a 6C5, mounted on a little box right here at an angle. This is not factory. In fact, what's supposed to be there is this single sectional electrolytic cap. In fact, that's what's going to go back there when I'm done with it. I do not know what this does. I know the guy was into shortwave, and I'm thinking it has something to do with shortwave. It's really all I can think of. I don't know what it is. I can't find a maker's mark or a part number on it anywhere. It could be homebrew, who knows. But it wires, it's completely reversible. In fact, the way it was activated is this 6-position switch here had a somebody homebrewed a 7th position into it. Well, not quite, no. Oh, let's take a look. Well, we'll look at that in a minute. I want to power check this again. I just swapped out a couple of metal tubes from here into here, and I want to make sure we're still in good shape. So let's go ahead and do that. This tube looks like it was completely burnt out. It was cold, not getting warm. This is a 6A8 GT. This is in the tuning section of the radio. I don't know exactly. I'm going to be straight with you guys. I'm not a tube radio fanatic. I would rather not do this. I'd rather send it to someone and write them a check and have it come back all pristine. I'm willing to do that, but nobody wants to touch these. So I'm kind of winging it here, and that's what got me into trouble over there. So, before I flip this over, and we're gonna run it a little bit, we're gonna see how it sounds. But before I do that, I want you to notice another thing that I found. So these are the original electrolytic caps. Some of them are multi-sectional, some of them are single. On this one, these are smaller. And they are not original. These were added by somebody else at some point in time. They've been... So what we're looking at here, I hope I'm not losing you guys. What we're looking at here is a radio that has been restored or repaired multiple times in its lifetime. So this was clearly done probably maybe in the 50s, when these were still all the rage, 60s, but more than likely sometime in the 50s. So they took out the original electrolytics and replaced them with these. For aesthetic, now these are all out of circuit. These have been removed when it was restored again in 2014 or 2013, 2011. It's been a while. So it was restored by a legitimate radio technician. I looked him up. He's the real deal. I won't say his name, but he's local. So he restored this, took these out of circuit, and put in modern day electrolytics that are probably now at the age of 14 years of age, are already probably in need of replacement. Jesus. Just can't get away from these damn caps. But anyway, for aesthetic reasons, I'm going to pop these out and put those in. So what I've decided to do, since this one actually works, and I don't really have to do much other than some aesthetic work and sleeving a couple of wires that are really dangerous looking, I'm going to go ahead and swap over a few components, and I'll tell you what they are. We're going to swap over some of the Teledial push buttons, which I have pretty much the whole set now. I got another box of these. If anyone needs Teledial push buttons, I've got them. I'm going to swap over the power switch and volume control because this one is in really bad shape. It's cheap. It doesn't belong on this set. It is not of the right era. And the factory knobs don't really fit on it either. It's got the wrong shaft type. I mean, I could make them work, but I got a good one, and I'm going to use the good one. Okay, that is too bad now. Let's fire it up. So you got two bulbs, one bulb. In later production years, they went to a single bulb. I don't think it was model specific. I do believe it was based on the year of construction. So this might have been made in 37 or so.
Hey guys, Donald Trump Jr. here with urgent news. The world's central banks are making unprecedented moves, and it's time to pay attention. In 2022 and 2023, they bought more gold than ever before. And now in 2024, the trend is accelerating. Why? Because central banks have lost faith in the dollar. And in these uncertain times,
okay, I don't know what's causing that. That's a new issue. I wonder if that tube is bad. That was my 6H6. Where's the one I pulled out of it? That was a new old stock 6H6. I've got to find another one. 6F6s are over there. I pulled it out of the chassis and did what with it? Oh, come on. Yeah, that was the most recent cap I just put in, and the other ones were all fine. Let's try that. I can hear a pulsation coming through it, though. Yeah, it's still doing it.
tell us about the business. First, I'll train the business. I've been at it for 14 years. I'm debt-free. I've found everything that you guys have spoken of, and I've applied that to my personal business.
You can still hear it.
My way out to
One of these tubes is bad. Pretty sure of that. Could it be that 6A8? could be that one. So that one came out of the other. But this one looks pretty burnt to me. So do I have another 6A8? I've got this Raytheon here. And I've got a box of good tested ones. So that's a 6K7. That doesn't belong there. That belongs over here. Oops. Let's power it up without the 6K7. There's a 6A8. Yeah, this is another new old stock one. Let's see if we hear that pulsation in it again. Yeah, I can hear it. It's like an oscillating. Hear it? Like a heartbeat. So it's not this one. Seriously, just started doing this now as I was kind of going through stuff. But that tube right there wasn't lighting up or warming up. So this was definitely blown. Let's try this 6J7. Okay. I'll put this one in. Don't worry, I know where they go. I have definitely a ton of map or charts and graphs and pictograms. It's not a big deal. Put that in there. Don't know what that noise is. Don't know where it's coming from. This is supposed to be on there. That's what it was. Nope.
Who's doing what you want to do? And if you give me the old, well, nobody's doing exactly what I want, okay, we're going to find some people who are doing something similar. And you know what I would do with the 10 grand? I'd spend a fraction of that. I'm going to find somebody, I'm going to keep this up. But this is somebody's doing something similar to what you do. You know what I'm doing? I'm saying, hey, what's it? What's it worth? And they said $1,500. So I'm going to give you $1,500. And I'm going to fly you. And if you don't know,
it's a brand new problem. That shouldn't be doing anything. It's out of circuit. Actually operating a business that you want to operate, tell me anything about the market analysis. I don't know what they're doing. Can I give you a $10,000 credit score that you can get for $20 today, Tracy? I don't know. New problem. This just started. I'm not sure what could be causing that. Interference, maybe. Found the problem. It's this tube socket right here. A little weak. Watch this. Put a little deoxit in there. Seems to be helping. So those RCAs, I'm having a hard time getting them to seat properly. They're very loose in the socket. So I've got these Russian tubes that I bought. I don't know why I bought these, but maybe to try them. And these are 6L6s, and they fit much firmer in the socket. Let's see what happens. They're not metal tubes, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. And by the way, we're pumping this through a smaller speaker than these are designed to drive. Sounds awful. I don't like it. Okay. All right. Down, boy. Okay, they don't want to play. Okay then. Do I have any more 6L6s? I have, oh yeah, they tested low. I checked them all. Every one of these was tested, and some of them are kind of low. So there's the other switch rack that I had in here. Well, these ones, the 6F6s will work, but I don't like them. They're kind of puny. So we'll put them back in and see what happens. Plug and play. But the 6L6s do put out a little more oomph. That's why they used them on the other radio. Just leave them alone. They sound good enough. Para pedir socorro a Yahoo. Também de Judá veio gente para buscar a Yahoo. Eu gostaria que você percebesse que eles estavam comigo. So what's nice about this one, unlike this one, the 12W, the 12B that I got actually has a functioning shortwave band. This one never worked, and I don't know why. Like I said, the unfortunate aspect of this project was that it was started by a gentleman who never finished it, was never given the opportunity to finish it when his life was cut short. Don't text and drive. Just don't do it. Because if that had not happened, this would probably have been finished. That's all. What? So this one has a functioning shortwave band. This one does not, and it never worked. I remember talking to John years ago, well, more than 10 years ago, probably 13 years ago, and he just hadn't gotten to that stage yet. And he had moved on to other projects, and then history, and he passed away, never got done. So this needed more work. Somebody already went through the trouble of aligning this one correctly for shortwave broadcast and the police band, which is used by God knows what now. So I've kind of cheated a little bit with this chassis. So all I need to do, we've got the tubes sorted out. We got the glass tubes back in here. This little, I guess it's just an RF interference cap or something. I put that on. That was missing. And I had it for this chassis. I tried the 6L6s. Mine are, they're dodgy at best. So I might have to pick up another 6L6. I've got one good one and one iffy one, which is the tube that was designated for that particular chassis cabinet, I mean. Other than that, we just got some cleanup work to do. I've got a missing vernier, or fine detail whisker on the dial here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to swap the dials over. Try to get these lock to lock. And I'm going to unscrew or use that screw in these dials. So we're going to get it horizontal and try to, so that should be at around the 12 o'clock mark. And let's just swap these over. All right, that fixes that problem. Some of these handmade labels, yeah, we'll have to fix that. That'll be the last thing I do. Oh yeah, these have to go in like that. Okay, yeah, these are kind of a pain. You know, this is not a high-end restoration job. This is just repairs and repairs only. What can I say? I don't pride myself in my vintage stereo restoration like this vintage. Like, that's not my thing. I enjoy using these old radios, but... So the next thing I want to do is that we're going to take all the wiring that I put into this. Oh, you know what I need to do? I need to sleeve some wiring. Let's take a look at that for a second. Save this hand. We might need this someday. And the hand screw. There we go. So that one, yeah, it was missing that whisker, that fine-tuned whisker. So I'm glad we have a good one to put back in it. I'm gonna put these tubes in my tube bag. I'll have to work with these. These were working tubes at one point. I don't know what happened to them. 6C5. So we're going to do we've already started removing this modification. Took it out of circuit, figured out what it was wired to, and realized very quickly that it was nothing to undo. So obviously make sure we unplug the set because there are no protections, no interlocks. All right. So this is what we're dealing with in here. This one is not as cleanly done as the one John built, but it does work. So I'll give it that. There's a lot of wiring in here that I would like to just go ahead and sleeve. But, you know, the more I think about it, the more I'm discouraged in doing such a thing. I just feel like it's a waste of time. Some of the wiring has been replaced. This tuning coil, for example, that's been all replaced. But I have to remove some of these wires. They don't do anything anymore. But I'm going to get some photos to document what's hooked up. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire it up again and see if it still works. I've disconnected everything for this. Nope. Oh, yeah, it works. Yep, still works.
To meta now. These freaks always have to change the name of something. He wrote a long letter. I'm not going to read all of it, don't worry. To Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is the head of the House Judiciary Committee. And what I'm about to read for you, honestly,
we're good to go. Okay, I think we're now clear to remove. We're now clear to remove the modification. I'm not sure I'm going to put anything in its place. I'm just going to take it out. It just makes it easier to work on it later down the road. You know what I mean? Less stuff. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on putting the volume control power switch and power cord from the other Grunow, the 12W, into this one. And once we do that, I mean, it'll basically be ready to slide in. I looked at some of the... Oh, yeah, there are a couple of capacitors I need to replace that were not replaced. The previous technician, or whatever he wants to be called, he left some of these old wax caps in circuit. Now, this one was not connected to anything, so I snipped it out. But, you know, these are what tank these radios. These old caps are what really cause, I think, the most headaches, because they are they're prone to leakage, and though they get degraded with air exposure when the wax begins to crack. They're very cheap, very poorly made, but that was a style back in those days. Let me pull the power switch. All right, let me make sure I got all the wires. Okay, so that's our first demodification there, and so far so good. I'm gonna go ahead and snip out these caps right here. There's one there, easy to get to. I'm gonna leave the lead in place, and we're gonna take that cap from the Grunow 12W, and we're gonna swap spots. We're gonna just trade places. I didn't want it to come to this But unfortunately, I don't think I have a choice. We're using my original chassis as a parts unit. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I just want the damn thing to work, and I don't care how. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at. I've been waiting a couple of years to get this thing sorted, and, well, time's a wasting, and I got other projects I got to tend to. So we're going to pull this orange drop out of there. And that's going to go in place of that one right there. So I got to get my iron warmed up. So we just leave as much of the lead as we can. And these are bipolar caps, so it doesn't matter how it goes in. It just got to solder on to that lug back there. That should be easy enough. Let me flip this around. These, I'm not going to make a habit out of working on old radios like this. This is just one that I own, and, you know, it means a lot to me. This old Grunow does mean a lot to me. It's my mentor and friend owned it. That one. You know, and he tried as hard as he could to get it back to 100%, and he just had, like myself, he must have had a lot of projects on his plate, and he never quite finished it. So in his honor, I'm gonna do what I gotta do to make it work. So we're gonna pop this cap in there, and we're gonna test it. But this is what happens to these. You know, the wax is just brittle. Air gets into these things, and they dry out, and they don't do much of anything. I'll hook it up to my cap tester and see what it does. It'd be kind of funny to see what the readings look like. So I just checked both of these. This one, nothing. This one got 20 ohms, no capacitance. Yeah. All right, our first cap is installed. That wasn't so bad. I measured the replacement, which I know is good. I mean, it's a metal film cap. I don't even know what the value is on it, but it measured 17 ohms, no capacitance. Capacitance on these is actually, I believe, way too low for my ESR 70 to read. So these are very low capacitance, if I'm not mistaken. Now I have one Grunow brand cap. It goes from, where's my light? So he left that Grunow cap. It just goes to ground, and accessing it will be a challenge. But I'm looking for so sometimes a technician might leave the original cap, cut it if they're in a rush, and they'll just, you know, terminate it with replace it with a cap somewhere else down the circuit. But this one's gonna be a biatch. Now I know why he didn't change it, because I think we had the same problem over here. So it's gonna be that orange drop right there. That goes, wait, it's this one that my light is pointed on right there. You see it? Kind of barely, sort of, kind of. It's not easy to get to. It's got some sleeve wire insulation on there. Yeah, that one's a bitch. Okay. We should power this thing up again just to verify functionality. I won't be making that mistake again. Every change, everything we do, power it up. Note any changes. Important. Because I did like everything at once on this, powered it up. No function. No function whatsoever. I'm on shortwave right now.
Pais, a fim de conduzir nossos filhos que estão no período da adolescência e fazer com que as chances aumentem deles escolherem permanecer.
Yeah, so far so good. So these wires that go to the tuning coil, one of them, I don't know what it is. It discriminator? What the hell is it called? Oh, whatever. It doesn't matter. These wires were almost completely devoid of all insulation, so I went ahead and I disconnected them and sleeved them. Rather than replace the wire, I just sleeved it, which is another acceptable repair. Not going to touch these. These are going to the tuning capacitor, that variable capacitor. And I think that might be where I went wrong by messing with those. I believe if you cut or replace those wires, if any change to the length or thickness may affect tuning and the alignment of the entire set. That's just a theory. I don't know if that's factual. Someone will correct me on that, I'm sure. I did find a miswire just now. So on this one right here, I think I might have found the actual problem. But I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to steam ahead with this one because too many bad memories. But I found that this wire that goes to this tuning coil up here goes to this lug, the last lug, and then the tuning coil below it, this one right here, goes to this lug over here. On this one, they both are attached to the same lug, and I don't think that is correct. So that may be the mistake I made. Very well may be. So, but you can see this is little bits of insulation that are just completely fallen off. And it's really just, those wires are what I'm looking at attacking. And, you know, any little bits of pieces of metal just hanging around for no reason. Trim a few things up. And then I'm going to attack the power side. I don't like this. The fuse holder is a good idea. I'm going to do it in a neater fashion. That's what I've decided to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the fuse holder in, but I'm going to do it a little bit neater than what the previous guy had done. So make it a little bit more presentable. So that's my MO here. So let's power test it, make sure it still works, and then we're going to move on to the next step. I'm going to move the volume control power over. I still need to attack this capacitor back here, even though it probably isn't hurting anybody. I'm going to go ahead and replace it. I think it's important that I do that. So, all right, making progress. We've got a beautiful 1936 power switch in there. I've already cleaned this. This was all completely gone through by me. Came out of that guy. So that's all set to go. Now we're going to flip the chassis upside down again, and we're going to do the power cord and get rid of this Chinesium power cord that they put on there. Polarity is a good idea on these old chassis because, well, this isn't really a hot chassis, but yeah, I have a non-polarized plug. It is best practice to go with a polarized plug, especially if you have a hot chassis. But this is not a hot chassis. So, as far as I know. What that means is, at no point is any part of this chassis energized. Although I'm going to check for that. I'm going to definitely check for that because that's actually a good thing to look into. So let's get it flipped. This is all put back together in the front here. We've got the power cord hooked up and routed from the switch to the block. Now we just got to do Okay, I think we're ready for a smoke test. So I rerouted my power cord. Took it from the old radio, the other chassis, and I popped it in here. I like that inline fuse. It is a 2.1 amp fuse, I think. 2.5 amp fuse. So if there's a draw bigger than that, it'll pop. Kind of nice, you know, if there is ever a hard short circuit somewhere in this bundle of clusterfuck, then we will at least have some protection. That's a very smart thing to do on these old units. In fact, I think I had put one in my Philco 37640 after I got it back from Bob Anderson. So we really didn't do anything catastrophic here. I think we'll be fine. I'm just, I looked at the invoice of what was done. So the gentleman who repaired this chassis, he owned a business, and this is what he did for either a hobby or a living. I'm not sure. Nothing in here really, I mean, look, these are hard to work on, and doing a clean job is just, you just can't. I mean, you can. I mean, there are people who do very beautiful work, but this was not a restoration. This was a repair. What's wrong with it? How can we get it working for this customer today? And I don't see anything wrong with doing that. I really don't. And some people might have a problem with that. They're doing a disservice or whatever. But the gentleman who worked on this did his job, and he did it fairly cheaply. He did it for like $300 or less. I think it was less than that. And you know what? The way I look at it, I would pay $300 for somebody to do this. Sure, no problem. I'd write a check right now if I were in the market for it. So I don't fault anyone for, a full restoration. It would have cost a lot more money and taken a lot more time to replace every wire with period correct wire that's damaged and crumbling. I just did here. I just sleeved the ones that I feel were more or less a hazard or could hinder the function in short order. But he replaced every cap except for those two. We're going to address this one in a little bit. That'll be the last thing I do before I put the chassis, into something. But, he did a decent job. It sounds great. It's aligned. It sounds to be aligned. I don't see anything wrong there. He did use some fairly inexpensive axial caps. These are TH. I don't even know what TH is. I'll have to look up the make and see who they are. But I see an eclectic mix of orange drop, metallized film caps, electrolytic axial caps, and these little bumblebee things. Or is that a resistor? That could be a wire. I think it's a wire wound. No, those are caps. Those are caps. I'm not familiar with those components. They do say microfarad. I thought maybe they were. No, a bumblebee resistor would be. What the hell are these? What the hell are those things? There's a name for these. I've heard the term bumblebee applied to resistors as well as caps, I think. And this, whatever. I don't use these. I don't use these in any of my work, so I don't really know. I'm not familiar. So don't be mean. Be nice. I do want to get the 6L6 tubes in this thing, but maybe looking at maybe if I just kind of do something. Yeah, this tube socket, you can see there's a lot of play in some of these pins. So we're just gonna cheat and I have a spare tube socket. So if I just kind of close these up a little bit, they may have worked themselves open over the years, But this is the tube socket that's giving me the problems. So I've got the schematic for this, and there are only a few minor differences between this particular B chassis and my original W chassis. And the output tubes are one of the key differences. The other difference is going to be in the, there are like one or two resistors. I have to find out where they are that need to be changed in value. That's all. A resistor or two and maybe a cap. But otherwise, identical. No appreciable difference between them really at all. So this is what I would call a, and yes, this must be an older chassis than what I had, because it has two lights versus one. So anyway, let me go ahead and put this back together. We're going to power it up and see what happens. All right, here we go. That didn't sound good. Let me check my wiring again. Okay, so I figured out what the problem was, but thank God I had a fuse in this unit because that saved the entire chassis and possibly the wiring from melting, and it would have been a very, very bad situation. I'm going to take this moment to really express just how important it is to add fuses, especially to a ball of mess like this, because you never know what could happen, and you know. But here's what actually caused it to blow. I had miswired the power lead, and effectively shorted out the transformers. So, yeah, I just had to move that power lead. The one in the far back there had to be moved one terminal towards me. So, again, that fuse, it was a 2 amp fuse. It lit off immediately and saved the entire chassis from further damage. In fact, there was no damage. But once again, I mean, these old electronics, I mean, anything can happen. And you really should protect them and yourself with a fuse. So I went ahead and I didn't have any more glass fuses. But once I found the error, I rewired it to work. And then I continued on with my work. But I have since replaced that fuse holder assembly entirely. Why not? And I stuck with a 2 amp fuse. It seems to be all it really needs. But again, that fuse really saved our day, because if it wasn't there, any number of those wires could have just completely melted. Not necessarily. Not just the power switch could have been damaged too, which I don't have a replacement for. So here's one for fuses. Mistakes happen, but fuses can save your life. So I did some before I power this thing up. I want to mention, it is a hot chassis. I do believe one of these terminals does have a connection to the chassis itself. So you got to be careful when working around these. But we're going to plug this in and see what happens. So this is the original style volume potentiometer. Oop, my dial's rubbing. Came loose. I got to work on that.
The letter that we talked about in the opening hour. If you missed it, go download a podcast, iHeart, Spotify, iTunes. It's all there. We talked about
Looks like we fixed that problem.
In that letter, he admits the FBI.
My plan was to sell that property, oh boy, and so I've got another farm here just sitting there in 35 water.
It actually sounds better.
By the next one, it
really does. Could be in my head too. Let's try a music station.
A los hechos que son noticias. Y en el mundo, las noticias. Presentamos. Alcott e sua esposa tinham 4 filhos para sustentar, mas que na verdade information. I'd like to provide information, and you've contributed to the conversation. Devastating consequences for your portfolio.
With clearing skies for the afternoon, but still humid, the humidity does come down later Wednesday night, setting up more comfortable conditions, and some sunshine with highs between 70 and 75 both Thursday and Friday. From Stormwatch 9 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kevin Skarupa. Hey.
Okay, I think at this point, she's ready to go in. All I have to do now is, well, just kind of finish up a few things. I want to get the pre-selectors all set up. Get these. They got to take these out. We're gonna clean them. I like the fact that I got one that says police on it. That's just awesome. And we'll rotate them to face the right direction. Yeah, some of these have silver bands. Some of them have black. I'm not sure what the meaning of that is. But I do have additional ones in my parts pile. I have a spare, so now I have 2 spare Teledial escutcheons. That's one. Yeah, here's my additional buttons. If anyone needs any of these parts, tell me what you need and I'll send it to you for a nominal small fee. I don't want these parts going to waste. There are people out there who want to save these old Grunows. They're not the most popular classic radio to collect, but they are kind of cool. And just to be clear, the 1297 cabinet that this is going into is not the Shirley Temple Grunow. The 1291, that's this one, is the Shirley Temple Teledial. If you want to be nitpicky, they're both very similar. They have the same basic innards, but there are some differences in styling. So this is a cheaper model. This cabinet right here is the less expensive of the two. The 1297 has the bigger speaker, which is why I wanted the 6L6s, in my push-pull tube amplifier. And yes, they do have an auxiliary jack. So you can hook this up to anything you want with one of these. But just keep this right there so I don't lose it. I'm not going to bother putting anything here. Maybe I will. I'll pop one of these tube electrolytic brackets and pop it in there just to make it look pretty. But I'm done for tonight. I'm happy with the progress I've made today. It's been absolutely, this makes me happy. I've got this thing running again. I'm going to do a complete restoration on the cabinet. So I have to strip the finish off. It is badly faded and not evenly either. It looks really bad. I don't know what I'm going to do with this cabinet. I may give this away. Find someone local who's looking for one. I'll leave the speaker in it. But I'm keeping both chassis for obvious reasons. I got to make sure I put this back in too. This is the bottom. I have 2 of those now. So these often get discarded by technicians. And over the years, a lot of these got lost. And what that does is it covers the IF section right here. It just completely covers it up and supports the selector switch. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'm not good with tube electronics. It's kind of a foreign concept to me, but I think I did okay with this one. I'm pretty happy with the end results. Interesting, though, how some of these are silver and some of them are black. I don't know what the meaning of that is. Very interesting. I should do another video on how to set these up because it is kind of interesting the way you're supposed to do it. It is interesting. But this all works fine. It mutes the audio like it's supposed to. I put some lubricant on this spindle here, so it doesn't squeal anymore. I'm really happy. I'm actually very, very happy with how this came out. This is fantastic. Thank you for watching. So little tip that should be pretty obvious to most, but with your antique radios and other goodies, guitar amps, whatever you got, hot chassis were a thing back then. And what it means is the metal box, the chassis, is connected directly to the line voltage in some way. So I'm going to probe the chassis against one of my terminals on my plug, right? And you can see it tones out. It has no resistance. The other probe, the other terminal does not. But if I turn the unit on, it completes the circuit. So these are obviously not UL compliant by today's standards. What your best bet is, and this is what the person who restored this radio had done, or repaired it. I don't want to say restored. This is not restored. It is repaired. Which is fine by me. That's totally fine. Based on what I paid for it, I'm okay with that. You want to put a polarized plug on the end of this cord. And you want to do that so that the hot side of the plug does not directly connect to the chassis. You understand what I mean? So wire it so that when you probe the hot side of that plug, the skinny prong, to the chassis, you get no connectivity unless you turn the switch on, which is fine. But what that's going to do is it's going to prevent your hot 120 volt AC current going to the chassis. Now, this is where it could be an issue, because once the knobs are in place, okay, you're not going to be touching anything conductive. When this unit is put together, you're not going to touch anything conductive, right? But the Teledial push buttons are conductive, except for maybe well, no, they're really not. If you yeah, okay, I think I see the difference here. So the black ones have paint on them, so they're not directly conductive, right? But the silver ones, well, maybe not. Maybe you're okay. I'm just saying, these are a shock hazard for yeah, absolutely a shock hazard. Yeah, get yourself a polarized plug. And you can get a polarized plug that is vintage looking too. I mean, they do exist. I'm going to actually put one on this because I don't really like the idea that, someone could accidentally touch one of the screws on the escutcheon and get shocked, because that can happen. Just saying. But yeah, depending on, well, let me demonstrate this. So right now, I've got the phone just sitting on my on the radio chassis. So I'm going to grab a multimeter, and we're going to sorry about that. Grab a multimeter, and I'm going to connect the radio to a water pipe. Watch what happens. Now my electrical system is grounded to the panel, so it's at some point down the line it's connected to the neutral bus. Most houses have, well, older homes are going to have this kind of a setup. I'm going to just let that antenna fall. So what does it mean when you have a grounded chassis? What is the safety implication? Well, very simply, depending on which side of the eeny, meeny, miny, moe equation you're on, when you plug this stupid thing in, you could very well be energizing the controls of the radio. And right now, I think we're in the clear. But if I flip this plug around to the other direction, I should be getting 120 volts AC between the chassis and the water line. And indeed I am. 107 volts. So if I were to tune this radio and touch a faucet at the same time, well, remember that scene in Home Alone where Merv, you know, lights up? Well, it's basically what's going to happen. And again, that's where polarized, and that could kill somebody. You know, that could kill someone. If you happen to be touching the wrong thing at the same time that you're touching the escutcheon, which is the metal face of the radio, which would be conductive, depending on the situation, you could be putting yourself at risk for the shock of your life. So again, we're going to go and we're going to just we're going to put a polarized plug on that thing, just to be a little bit safer. Safen up a little bit. Well, thank you for watching. Oh, we have a visitor. That's why you're all puffy. Looks like Lorenzo came by to say hi, because his parents abandoned him. Aww. Okay, so we're back on the Grunow here. It's the 28th of August. So if you didn't watch my previous video, we started doing some kind of fine-tuned touch-up kind of work on this chassis that I bought. I bought a complete 1291 Grunow Teledial for the purposes of repurposing the chassis that it came with, so that I could bring back to life my 1297. And the chassis, although are one letter away from being identical, you can convert an 1191 into a 12, you can turn a 12B chassis into a 12W and vice versa by just swapping out a few components. The push-pull tubes in the amplifier section, the output tubes, just swap the 6F6s for 6L6s, and you can change out 1 or 2 capacitors and some resistors. And bada boom, bada bang, you've got a 12W, which is the correct chassis for the 1297 that I'm working on. So, in terms of this becoming a Franken radio, not really an issue, nor do I care. I'm not fixing up this radio to sell it at the next radio swap meet. I'm restoring it for myself and for my and Amelia's enjoyments, and that is all. So I don't want to hear it from the purists. Not that anyone would know, because it's literally the same fucking chassis. Now that that's out of the way, I replaced my my fuse holder with a new one because I kind of blew up the old one. And in doing this, and I don't want to talk about how that happened, but in doing this, I realized that somebody had added a wire here that connects the chassis to the to what could actually be the hot lead on the power cord. And I question that, because my old chassis doesn't have that jumper. There's no jumper connecting So what I want to do, so I don't think this is correct. I don't think that's supposed to be there. So here's what I suggest we do. I'm going to temporarily remove that jumper wire, and we'll just kind of put it off to the side. And if the radio still runs, see, if there's no need for the chassis to be hot, then I'd rather it not be. So let's just see what happens. I'm going to disconnect that wire, and I'm going to clip it. Put some kind of something on there to keep it from shorting out against anything, but we'll just stick it over here, get it out of the way. Okay. And then we're going to power this thing up and see if it runs. I don't see why we need to tie. Well, okay, you know what? I think I know what he did. So he polarized the plug to prevent an electric shock if the plug were to be reversed. But he took it one step further, and he connected the chassis to what was potentially the neutral. And I put my fuse on the neutral lug. So I don't think it really matters. I mean, these things are designed to be plugged in either way. They did not have polarized plugs in 1936. But let's just see if that wire is even necessary. I'd rather it not be there if it doesn't need to be. I'm sure you understand why. Because without that wire, the and what I'm referring to is, so this chassis was worked on previously by a radio restoration, a guy who owns a shop restoring these radios, and this is just one of those things that he did that I kind of questioned why it was done that way. I think I know why, like I just explained, but for my own interests. So now the plug isn't hot, the chassis. Neither prong is hot. If you're gonna do that, ground your neutral to the chassis and then ground the chassis to a ground pin. I could see that. I could see a case made for that, but I don't understand why he did what he did. All right, so I went ahead and I removed that strap that connected the chassis to what would eventually be the probably the neutral pin on the plug. And I'm gonna now plug it in. After looking at my 12B chassis, or 12W chassis, I noticed that one doesn't have a direct connection from either power lead to the chassis. If you're going to do that, you can connect the neutral to the chassis and the chassis to a grounded plug. That makes sense to me. But if you're not going to ground the plug, why would you do that? Because someone like myself just a few minutes ago swapped out the power cord and put a non-polarized plug on it, which is what would have been originally installed. Does any of this make sense? I hope so. All right, here we go. See if it still works. It still works.
That's 617-644. A los que piden serena y honradamente la distribución.
Works fine. We're going to leave that out then. Like I said, I think I know what they were trying to accomplish, or that being the guy who worked on it. And I don't disagree with his methodology, but I just feel like if you're going to do that, there's always a risk that someone will swap the plug out and make the chassis inadvertently hot without realizing it. Because this radio was not designed originally to have the chassis connected to either pin on the plug. So I just undid that. I don't know if I covered this in my last video because I have been jumping around and filming bits and pieces or not. But I've been demodifying this chassis as well. It had this thing installed. I don't know what the hell it is. It had a 5-something tube on it. I forget what it was. And it was linked to a homebrew we'll just call it a 6.5 position on the tone selector. So the Teledial has a 6-position tone switch. And let me explain what that means. So it has a high, medium, low, high, medium, low. The first section, the first high, medium, low, is going to be for with Teledial tuning assistance. So when you press the buttons and roll it to your favorite station, it's going to use some kind of a discriminator coil that somehow finds the strongest point within a percentage either way of that particular frequency, and it's going to lock onto it. So you don't have to fidget with your tuning knob. That is allegedly working on this radio. According to the notes from the gentleman who worked on it before me, he did repair that feature, which is a common issue on this. Now, the next 3 positions, high, medium, low, are just standard tuning. And you can hear a little bit of a difference, but whatever. What they did was they soldered a tab to the end of the shaft of that switch, and added another connector pin. I'll show it to you in a second. And that somehow activated this thing. I don't know what the hell it is, but it doesn't belong there. So I took it out, I unwired it, made sure everything was connected properly. I don't like homebrew modifications on anything, so that's one of the things I took out. Is this the tube? This is a 6J7. I think it was this. No, it wasn't. It was a GE tube, actually, but it's now in my pile of tubes. These are my extra Grunow keys. This is my aux jack adapter. I love the fact that this has an aux jack because I can hook an iPod up to it without modifying anything, and that is just cool. That is really cool. So kudos to Grunow for being future-proof. I just temporarily took my worst looking Teledial escutcheon and glass, and I temporarily mounted it so I don't bend the hands by accident, because it already happened and I can't let it happen again. I'm thinking about repainting the hands. I haven't really decided yet how I'm going to do that, but I think for now we'll leave them alone. So let's go ahead and flip this upside down so I can do some more work. In my last video, I cut out and replaced at least one capacitor that was not replaced when it should have been. In today's video, I think I'm going to do the other one. This one's going to take some doing. It's going to be hard to get to, but I think where there's a will, there's a way. So what they did, and this is kind of neat, it's neat because of the resourcefulness here, but they actually took a screw and ran it into this, can I remove that screw? Yeah, it just comes right out. They added that screw and they soldered a wire to it, and then they soldered a tab, a little copper tab, brass tab, right here. And I touched it. I'm like, what is that? I'm looking at it, and I touched it and it fell off. Ugh, no, don't do that. Now, I don't know if I caught this on video or not, but originally, or when I got this, it had another control knob in the middle, right here. So when I was looking at the Facebook Marketplace, I'm like, why is there a 5th knob on this Teledial 1291? It doesn't belong there. Well, they even drilled a hole in the front of the unit there. And what it was, is it had something to do with that. It looks like a tuning coil or something. I don't know. I don't know what the hell it is, but it doesn't need to be there. So we took it all out. I'm not drilling a hole in my good chassis, or my good Grunow cabinet, the one I'm going to restore. All right. So this cap way here in the back, and by the way, we've got to make sure that we have the plug on our hand. There it is. This is live. Let's cut this wire out of here while we're in there. So yeah, I just put a new fuse holder in there because the other one, it actually broke. And so I just bought a new one. Picked it up today. Local auto parts store. they're asking me for a year, make, and model, and like, yeah, it's a 36 Grunow. And they're like, what kind of car is that? I'm like, it's not a car, it's a radio. Auto parts stores. Gotta love it. Let's get that out of there. All right, so we took care of that. That's all fixed. Just, again, I'm demodifying this thing as much as I can within reason. So, how are we going to get to that cap? First, I need to harvest the replacement from the Bachmann set, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to just go ahead and clip this here. And where does it connect? All right, this is going to take some real clever maneuvering here. Here's my flashlight. So it's going to connect. You can actually see it on this side. And what I want to do, oh, I see where it goes. Here's a little trick I learned. So I cut the old one out, the old Grunow. What we're going to do is we're going to grab a pair of little needle nose forceps thingies. What do I do with them? I just had them here. All right, so I got the old part out, and what you want to do is you want to leave as much of the lead as you possibly can, because that comes in handy later. But this was the only one of two actually original wax caps that were still in use. Now I don't understand why that technician did what he did by leaving it in service. He's not doing anybody any favors. But to his credit, the radio worked, so I won't complain. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, these are long enough so we can put a nice little U into the remaining part of the lead. So that gives us something to solder onto. I'm then going to take the donor part, and I'm going to do the same thing. So this donor one is like all the others that John put into that chassis. It is a ceramic, excuse me, not ceramic. It is a metal film, I believe. Yeah, I believe this is a metal film cap, or what he called orange drops. And we're gonna just hook it on. And there's just enough room in there for me to get my soldering iron in. And we're going to have to make sure that we bend that up a little bit so that it's not shorting against the adjoining pin, because right now it is. So we're going to go back in there, we're going to bend it down, and that's just how the whole thing is built anyway, so it's not much of a big deal. All right, I'm going to go ahead and solder that in. I'm going to have to get some light over here somehow, but we'll do that. Okay, we got that all worked out. That was tricky, but nobody died, no casualties, everything looks good, and it's back where it belongs. And that is the one that, again, John had installed in my, well, was then his Grunow. So that is good. Good. Looking for any other wires that could really benefit from sleeving, and I'm not touching these tuner capacitors. What the fuck is it? Variable capacitor. The variable capacitor. These right here. I'm not touching those wires because I don't want to take this thing out of alignment. Not saying that what I'm doing isn't doing the same damn thing, but you know. It still sounds okay. So I can at least rest knowing that. Love these old, I believe these are wire wound resistors. Very beautiful old junk. Got these all put in there. That was one of the biggest, those are the two biggest things I wanted to address, were those old wax caps. Get those out of there. Yeah, watch for falling solder flakes. That's not a good thing. Okay. I think we should power test it again, make sure we're still good. But I think we'll be fine. I went ahead and I cleaned all the teledial keys. And I kept the keys for stations that I know are still active in my area. WBZ is one of them. We've got WHDH is still around. The police one, that's just cool. That would have been to preset a tuning station for the local police. Which, yeah, the local 50. All right. You know, I love working on this radio because it makes me think about what broadcasts that this thing would have received back in its heyday. You know, especially the local police back when they were using analog radios. Yeah, we got a report of a wise guy jaywalking. You know, shit like that. Just stuff that we wouldn't even... Somebody stole a blueberry pie from Mrs. Smith's window, you know. Golly gee shucks. Oh, man.
In three-line neighborhoods is similar to what they see when patients start...
Yeah, sounds exactly like it did. I wasn't expecting much of a difference because that cap is probably there for some kind of noise suppression or something. Number 29135 on the schematic. Of course, the schematic doesn't tell you what the part does. It just tells you where it is. But they're all not. All the original ones were numbered. And I have... Oh, I can't read that. Maybe I can. 2135. Adjustable condensers. That's the variable condenser. I keep calling it a variable capacitor, but it's a variable condenser. That's what that rack of plates that moves with the dial. That's what that is. Transformers and coils, miscellaneous. Mica condensers. Paper condensers, here we go. 29, 28, 30, 34. I don't see it on here. Oh, 29135. Supposed to be item number 54. So this is numbered. It tells you where it goes. 0.1 microfarad, 200 volt. So now this is where the differences start coming into play, because you'll notice on... I have a better copy of that. That's better. All parts of 12W schematic same as 12B except the following. Number 36983, 260 ohm, 2 watt. That's number 38 on the, but I can't read the numbers because they're just not kosher. Number 38, let's see if I can find that on this one. This is a bit clearer, but not as good. Number 38. I mean, really, it's just a slight difference in resistance. Output trans, yeah. Ooh, 36, 956 output trans. 36,956, that's item 187. Transformers and coils. Output trans, here we go, number 187. $35, so number 187. Oh, is that the speaker? That's probably the speaker. Where is the speaker on the schematic? I can't read that. I think that's that's got to be it. 205 output. Oh, no, speaker. Okay, that's a separate item. 187. 285, 187. So that is, I know that the tubes are different. We got that. $36,956. I'll have to do some homework because something has to be changed, and I don't know what it is. Output transformer or output transistor? Conundrum. Don't know. So I got to make sure I'm doing the right thing because I am powering a bigger speaker. So I've replaced the push-pull tubes, output tubes. I've changed those. But anyway, onward and upward. Figured it out. It's actually built into the speaker. That's all. It's part of the speaker assembly. So that I don't have to worry about. But I do have to consider let's see. 39, okay. Power fit, yep, okay. At least the big stuff is all the same. 6L6 output tubes, yeah, we knew that. Number 36983. So I gotta find that resistor and swap it out. That 260 ohm resistor. And I'll just harvest it from that chassis right there. And then it's just a... No, that's it. That's it. Just a resistor. Everything else is the same. So I got to find that resistor, wherever the hell that is. Now this next thing is going to be a little nitpicky, but I'm going to be replacing these smaller electrolytics that are empty shells with the correct ones that originally would have been on a machine like this. Now, these are just, if I were to crack this open right now, there would be just a metallic foil grid thing in there. That's it. These are empty. There's no electrolyte in these. So all that electrolyte has leaked out over the years. And that's what happens to these when they get old. All the electrolyte just kind of disappears and goes nowhere. So I want to point out why it's important to remove these or empty them out, because this one still has electrolyte in it. And if you look, this has been leaking as of recently. This leg of this wire right here, which was added later on, is actually corroding right in the middle there, right here, right in the middle of that hole, because there is still electrolyte leaking out of this. In fact, if I bust this thing open, I think we should. I think that could be fun. We'll bust it open and we'll see what's inside. Okay, I cracked it open, but it was actually full of paper. All right, so, hey buddy. So my pettiness paid off. I not only did I replace all of the undersized electrolytic caps, but I also added back the one that was removed back in the 30s, or whenever. Put this in place. It's a little wobbly. My rivet gun is a little awkward, and I couldn't get it tight enough, but I'll just maybe put a little bit of solder on those rivets, or just leave it alone. But I mean, these are obviously just dummies. These don't do anything. They are out of circuit. They are just there for show. But I like to, I think that's it's a nice touch. So let's just fire it up one more time, and then we're going to basically call this a done. This part of the project will be done, and I can focus my efforts on restoring the cabinet, which won't be this one. I'm going to try to find a home for this 1291. Now this 1291 is the Shirley Temple model. That is exactly what it is. But before I do that, I'm going to practice some refinishing techniques. I bought all the stuff I need based on some recommendations I read in a couple of different forums, and I'm going to work on doing some refinishing, practice refinishing on this one before I attack the one that I really care about. As part of the refinishing process, I will be replacing the grill cloth if I can find what I need. I think I'll be able to find what I'm looking for. I'm going to be removing the stuff that John had put in there. It's not really in right anyway. Maybe the guy he bought it from put it in, but it's really not pretty. So I'm going to be replacing the grill cloth with this. So this one, I wasn't sure if it was original or not, and I'm still not really sure either. But it's in awfully good condition for something that could potentially be nearly 90 years old. I do believe this has already been recovered, but this is kind of the look I want to go for. I think it looks very nice. And grill cloth is kind of hard to find and very expensive anyway, because all the weaving mills that used to make it are now gone. So, and grill cloth is a special fabric. Well, the vintage stuff. It's a very specialized material. It's designed to allow air through it. And the intricate patterns and designs are now a lost art. So let's go ahead and fire this thing up one more time before we call it done. We have power. I didn't really do any changes to it, just cleaned a few things up. But I just want to make sure we're good to go. Okay, we have power, we have sound.
Or talk to anybody that told me the story you just told me. That's astounding. It's truly amazing. You're certainly not hurting.
I like this. I like this
You have a
dial.
lot of money in the bank.
It's gorgeous.
You're safe.
Gorgeous.
Man, you're safe.
Let's do some shortwave.
Acaparan la atención normalmente, tienes un sector que todavía estamos luchando porque se invisibilizó, sector invisibilizado totalmente.
Sounds pretty damn good to me. All right. That's going to conclude our video. Thank you for watching. And in our next video, I'm going to do some practicing on the refinishing process. I want this thing done before Thanksgiving. And I am about 2 months ahead of schedule. So I think we're heading in the right direction. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this cover back in place and just button up a few things, and I'll be on my way. So at this point, I'm looking at replacing the tuning deck bushings. I'm going to have to desolder these wires on the variable condenser. There's no other way around it. They have to be liberated. So I'm working on that now. And I have replacement bushings that I bought for this one, which are now being ripped out. But that's just what has to happen. So we're doing that now. So we're at a point now we're doing bushings on the tuning deck. I've got this whole tuning deck sitting precariously wedged. Not happy. But the bushings were completely rotted. In fact, somebody at some point tried to glue little bits of rubber in here. I don't like that. We're gonna fix all that. Just desoldered. I'm not replacing any wire. I'm afraid to do that. But we're just gonna put everything back the way we found it when we're done here. It should be easy enough. Nothing needs to be touched in the tuning deck. But that's gonna be it. And once we do that, it's going to go back together again. And I should have, yeah, here's, so I got these bushings that I bought for the Grunow 12W, and we're putting them on the 12B. We're going to make this, effectively, this will be a 12W chassis when I'm done with it. So it's no longer going to be a Franken radio, so to speak. But I got to grab a razor blade and chip away some of the old dried rubber crap that's in there. So I got this tuning deck back together again. And I'm just doing some reassembly, but then I noticed there's liquid in there. Now we're going to want to drill a hole in this thing and let that out. It's probably not a good idea to have this stuff in there because it will leak out and cause further damage. Remember, this is a fairly useless capacitor at this point. So I'm going to drill a small hole in there and let the juice out. Okay, don't aim it towards the face. But there's liquid coming out of there. A little bit. Nope, that was in my head. That was not. Okay. Now what's going to come out of here is 90-year-old electrolyte. Here you go. Yeah, that's not good. You don't want that in there. You want these to be empty because eventually the stuff will migrate out of there and it's just going to cause more damage to your chassis. This stuff is corrosive and honestly it doesn't smell bad. It smells like a, I can't even describe the smell. It's kind of like, it's not bad. It actually smells like a cleaning agent of some kind, but it's really just, it's probably like a mildly acidic or probably, no, this is alkaline, probably salty solution. Then I'm going to go ahead and solder over that hole. I think. It's pretty well emptied now. And you remember the rule, after every change, we power it up. No matter what. Now what that's going to do for us is pretty obvious. If it doesn't work, we can undo what we just did. Or used in part or in whole. But all new bushings. Nice and tight. Tuning deck is nice and tightly fastened. The bushings will absorb some of the vibration, hopefully. That's the idea. What band are we on? Oh, we're on shortwave. There we go.
Some of the toughest units in Texas, they call one of them.
All of a sudden tonight at about, I don't know, what was it, like 6:30 or something, the Patriots send out?
This
This was a form of, the Chinese would call it biological.
We're good.
What?
No change. So, at this point, this chassis is ready to go in. So now, just to reiterate, I can now focus my attention on the cabinetry, the console radio cabinet. So, thank you for watching, and have a great day.